Yesterday I went for my one day to Magarey Lectures. Once a year, ministers of Churches of Christ in South Australia get together for a thing they call Magarey Lectures, 3 days of input. I thought would one day be enough for me. Been around a long time, you know. So I went one day, and the first lecturer or first person who got up did the thing that I really hate. He got up and gave us a bit of an introduction, and then he told us to go away and spend our own time with God, you know. Have a quiet time with God for 3/4 of an hour. And I said, where was my lecture? Anyway, it leaves you with a couple of alternatives. What do you do with that time? A time when we're meant to be thinking around what God means. And it sort of brought into my mind the idea of communion. What is communion after all? It's an intimate conversation, a time of reflection with and about God. I wonder what we do in that few minutes we have to reflect when we're taking bread and wine. Well, I had 3/4 of an hour to deal with, and somebody like me who just likes to talk a lot, and if I'm not talking, I'd rather listen to somebody talking, and listening to myself is, well, whatever. Two alternatives, it seems, and Mark told us that he did one of them. Mark went for a walk. He went for a walk down the road, and in those sort of circumstances, something immediate can sometimes appear or become a significant moment or a symbol that stands out for somebody. I've done those ones and had some very significant experiences. He came to the corner, to a roundabout, and had one of those mirrors up on a post so you can see around the corner. And there's a little sign under the round mirror which says, distorted image. And it reminded him that while that mirror was telling the truth, it was showing you what was real around the corner, the image to some degree is distorted. And even though we, in our times of reflection, see the truth, it's sometimes a little distorted. And I thought that's a really good thing that he's picked up in his moment with God. But I just was glued to the chair. I just sat there in my chair, and I noticed some people closed their eyes and clearly prayed, and some people did other things that, well, closed their eyes and maybe slept. I have no idea. But I picked up my phone and I began to read. I read what I have written. Now, when I came out of college, some of that thinking, which was so important to me, I couldn't throw away. I had to treasure, because it was a treasure to me. And so around that, I developed over the years what I call my creed, which is my writings, my theological journal, stuff I write about God. And I wrote it for me. I addressed it to anybody who'd listen, but I didn't give it to anybody to read it. So it was just written so that I could read it and remind myself of those provisions that God has given to me of thought and understanding over all the years. And so in my creed, I picked out my bit about God, the general stuff about God, and I read that to myself and reminded myself of what God has given me already. And I thought that was a significant thing that we do at communion. We come here to be reminded of what we have learnt already. The good thing about when I read this stuff to myself that I've written, I very often discover a new thought in there. Oh, I've missed that. Oh, I'm not sure that I've written that quite the way I'd want to say it. And I change my thinking. And suddenly I've discovered something new. And that's what we're doing here. We're thinking around this very old thought of taking bread and wine. reminders of the very presence of God. Here is our understanding of God in bread and wine. And what do we understand? That's what we're asked to think about. What is it that God has given to us in this provision of something to remember him with? To remember Jesus. It's all about love, isn't it? It's all about forgiveness. It's all about hope. It's all about being a child of God and dreaming that God's kingdom will come.